assuming a lot of people realize that Someone New is an adaptation of the play La Ronde, which has seen so many forms. So, in what I guess what made you decide to approach it, and then how was trying to adapt it to a current world and climate, like what was your inspiration for deciding to do it, and then what was the process of saying now I'm going to completely update it into something new?
Totally. So I was just rereading it one day, and I realized, so in the original there are 10 separate scenes. They're all self-contained, and there's just two characters in each one. And I was reading it, I was just thinking like, this like fits perfectly for like a web series format. And then I was thinking about, in the original, it has to do with class. So it was written in 1897 in Vienna, which is a very like stratified society. And the first episode is between the bottom rung of society. It's a prostitute and a soldier. And you follow them as they, like, so you follow these soldiers, so they have sex. And then the next one is the soldier has sex with someone new, and then you follow that person that he had sex with to someone new. Then you go all the way up until it's a count, which is the highest, like a royalty type figure, and he's having sex with the prostitute from the beginning. And so I just love that all of these people were connected. I loved, once I read it, I was like, wow, people are exactly the same. Like, that is the common denominator. Like, we're all, like, people don't change. But I didn't really feel like class was something that I really related to in the same way. Particularly in the United States, where we try to be as classless as possible. So I was thinking, like, what is a millennial class? Like, how do we see people in different classes? And so the first episode, the first episode's not contained in this, but it's between someone that you might consider on like the bottom rung. So you have this like really like trashy looking festival girl and a fuckboy. And you kind of watch, so you start there. And another thing that I loved about the original is that it gives you, it's like, oh, a whore and a soldier, you know who these people are. But like you don't, and it gives you a moment, like you're introduced, like these are who these people are. You go in with your ideas of who they are, and then you see like, oh, this person isn't who I think they are. Which kind of ties to like the whole Tinder thing, where it's like, oh yeah, I know this person. And then you see them in two different situations, because you see each person with a different person, and they're completely different given the situation. So yeah, I don't know, all those things I thought were so interesting, so I wanted to
were you concerned, I would say even from making this 5 years ago, there's almost a different dynamic of sexual, or there's a different construct of sexual dynamics in our country. Did that feed into, like, were you conscious at all of, like, do I need to make sure that no one is being treated too horribly in one way, or if I do, I'm going to counterbalance it with someone else? Like, does that weave in and out?
Definitely. So yeah, I wrote this pre-Me Too, and then it happened, and then I was looking back at some of my stuff, and I was like, oh shit, this like doesn't, like particularly the one between, the one in the office, I was like, oh, does this still, am I going to be okay doing this? And I was like, I wrote it from a place of truth, right, of authenticity, and I was like, this kind of stuff happens, and I didn't feel a need to like do any type of rewrites. I will say that when I wrote it, I just went through a lot of personal growth, and when I went back, because it took a while for me to get to the filming process, and I was like, oh, I'm definitely not the same person I was when I wrote this.
That's a good.
Yeah, no, but it was just very interesting. Like, I was doing it and I was like, oh, this feels like it's much harder to connect with this material that I wrote only 2 years ago than I thought it would be, which was just like very eye-opening for me.
And you were always going to have the two people play was that always in, or did you finally decide to do it that way as opposed to a larger cast?
So initially I was open to casting other people, but going off of the same concept of like all people are the same, I kind of wanted to find each of those people within myself. And I also think that like identity, like the fluidity of identity is something that's really unique to the millennial generation. So that's something that I was like, I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to try it.
Yeah, great.
So, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.